Hi, I'm Willie, and welcome to my channel. My special guest today is Tom Lawrence from Lawrence Systems, and Tom runs his own YouTube channel and a consulting company. And if you want to learn a lot about pfSense, I've got a couple videos, but Tom I would consider probably to be a pfSense master. So go over and check out Lawrence Systems. And welcome, Tom. How are you doing today?
Wonderful and spicy.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about security, and we've got kind of a semi loose list, I guess. I added a couple things to it. Um, we're going to talk about physical security. We're going to talk about firewalls, camera systems, all kinds of stuff. So, Tom, are you actually watching the live stream at all?
That's what I was getting ready to pull up on there. I'm thinking of that. I'm like, hey, let's get this all pulled up at once.
Yeah, our list is at the bottom below our videos. Let me see if I can resize this a little bit.
I just gotta make sure I mute YouTube and do this right. And
Looks like that we are live. Sean Woods. Hey, Sean, how you doing? Sean's in the comments. Sean, can you hear both of us okay? Yeah, he hasn't responded yet. Maybe he can't hear either of us.
there's a delay as well. So
Yeah, it's a few seconds. Yeah, good to go. Hey, Matthew from Roselle, you're not too far from me. Sean says we're fine. Perfect. So the first kind of list that we came up with, we wanted to talk about physical security, so procedures and things like that, encrypting data at rest and in transit, encrypting laptops, desktops, USB locks, end user training, camera systems, and then firewalls. And then we will, of course, at any time open this up for questions. Tom, are you able to see the chat?
yep, I am.
Perfect. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here once again. If you're just tuning in, Tom Lawrence from Lawrence Systems is my special guest today, and today's live stream is all about security. And just go over to Tom's channel. You can find him if you're at my channel over on the right-hand side under the group called IT Crew. There's a link to Crosstalk Solutions, then Lawrence Systems, and of course Unky Joe. Have you watched any Unky Joe's stuff, Tom?
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple.
Yeah. He seems to be good people, so I threw him on the list there. So go over and subscribe to Tom's channel, and he does a lot of pfSense stuff and a lot of free NAS stuff. Good content you've got going over there. And I always fire up Vlog Thursday and have it rolling in the background.
That's someone asked about that if we were gonna turn it into a podcast. I'm like, we don't do a ton of visual reference, and it's kind of on purpose because we've had a few people mention it. They just listen to our blog, so we were leaving it on YouTube, but it is kind of podcast-ish because other than us waving our hands around in excitement for things, there's not a ton of visual going on.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the content. So the one thing that I added to the list was making sure that like guests sign in and having procedures to verify people when they're entering your premise. So when we talk about security as IT professionals, we shouldn't just talk about the bits and bytes and the cables. Security goes way beyond that. Security starts outside of your facility, and it's not all technical stuff. We have to train our users and everything else. So one thing that I like to do, and actually, if you follow a lot of compliance-driven guidelines, you will see this over and over again where they want you to have a logbook at the front desk, and you have, you kind of lead people in, you gate them to a front desk where they have to sign in. So you know who's in your building and why they're there. You just don't let strangers come in off the street and wander your hallways.
So we work with a lot of transportation providers, and we're in Detroit. So Detroit is a gateway to Canada. So we have a few certifications that our transportation providers have provided that are CPAT, which means you can only not just walk in. Even us, as known as we are, because we do their IT service, we have to get badges assigned to us and clipped onto us at all times because they have security people watching for anyone with an unexposed badge. Even if they're an employee, they can't cover up the badge. They're very strict about that. It's a real important aspect, and it's because of the international cargo. That goes through customs. Once it's gone through customs and they assume it's secured in the building, they can't have people wandering in because wandering people could add things to the cargo or remove things from the cargo.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And where did you say that that company is located?
Actually, any company, and I believe it's called the CPAT cert. It's a cert that transportation providers need. So we're in Detroit. That's where our office is. Well, Greater Detroit area. But because we're the big border crossing for getting things to Canada, a lot of freight passes right through here. So there's a lot of these warehousing companies that are our clients.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. So, at my day job, we all have security badges that we have to wear, and people are supposed to check in, check out. So, even the security company, when they come to check out panels and things like that, they don't just have gratis access. So to get into the server room, they have to find there are 4 people who have a key. They've got to find somebody who's got a key, and if they show up on a day that those 4 people don't happen to be there, well, then they should have scheduled it in advance.
Yeah. So it's really it's neat. I've seen it. I do like this. I don't know how many hospitals do this outside of Michigan, but U of M, University of Michigan Hospital, is like one of it's attached to the university. When you go there, in order to wander around the hospital or do any type of thing, even if you're just visiting someone there, they actually have a badge station and they print an ID badge on the fly as you arrive to
That
be able to go into places.
that's awesome.
I've been to a couple data centers that do the same thing. They print your badge on the fly. Whoever helps create your badge grants where you can go and where your badge will let you go, and it prints your face on it too. It's got a little camera and it's all black and white, but it still at least looks something like me.
Right, right. Well, and I have a friend who works at one of the larger hospital systems in Illinois, and uh, his only job, and I'm not trying to minimize this, but his job is Active Directory, and so he creates user accounts, suspends user accounts, adds people to groups, things like that. And he was telling me about their new data center, and they have, I think, I can't remember the certifications of data centers. I've got them written down, but it's like the second lowest, or the one right under the highest level certification for data centers. And I said, well, you think you could get me in for a tour? And I mean, just instantly, he's like, no. I'm like, well, that's great, but so yeah, you should always know who's in your building. And not only just from a security standpoint, but from a safety standpoint, a lot of companies have policies and procedures in place that, I mean, God forbid, or whatever you believe in forbid, that there's a guest in your building and there's a bomb scare, or I mean, unfortunately, in the world we live in, what if there's an active shooter? It's good to know who's in the building from even just a safety standpoint that way.
Yeah, keeping track of all of them and things like that. This is actually really interesting. When I was at the Microsoft Build conference in Seattle earlier this year, one of the things they demoed was a workplace safety thing. And what it uses is your active camera feeds and facial recognition to determine everyone in an area and who's in each area.
That's interesting.
And if people go in areas they're not supposed to, it can let you know. It lets management know. So you can build triggered alerts based on this. So the future of security is actually getting way more interesting as we have this. It's a really cool demo to see. It even had options to do object recognition. So if someone picked up a tool they're not authorized to use, it would also send a management notification for that as well.
So that means
Willie picked up a thing that he's not authorized to use. So you end up with this really interesting security standpoint. I don't know if you know, there's a new camera company out that it's similar to the Nest. It's a home security, and it's using facial recognition. So it can trigger an alert to you if it doesn't recognize the person walking through your house. So you can actually use this while people are home, and if it sees someone it doesn't know, it can let you know.
So, interestingly enough, in Illinois, you cannot use the Nest facial recognition features.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Illinois does have. I remember that you guys have you guys are suing Facebook right now about them auto-identifying people.
Well, and as crazy and as messed up as our taxes are, and as many people are fleeing, we actually do have good consumer privacy and protection. Yeah. So it's a little interesting. In fact, the state of Illinois actually has an initiative where they're trying to figure out how to use blockchain in government and secure all the things of all the residents of Illinois using blockchain.
How is Illinois the place doing that? Like California? Hello? People?
I don't know. Well, I mean, it could be the reason we're broke. I mean, I don't know.
That could be too. That's a whole other animal there.
People are saying that they're having a hard time hearing you, Tom. So I'm gonna move my mic around and see if we can get a little bit better audio on you. All right. So if you can still hear me, and then when Tom fires off here, we'll see if you guys can hear
Oh,
Tom a little better.
how about now? I should be a lot louder. There, I turned up my Yeti, so that should make a big difference.
Yeah, you're louder on this side.
Okay, I just had to turn the Yeti up.
Okay. So, physical security. You go out, do a Google search. As smart as Tom is, as smart as I am, as smart as all these other YouTubers are, Google is still your friend. There's a lot of people that are really smart out there that post stuff that's not on YouTube, and a quick Google search will help you find that. And so you can go out and you can find policies and procedures for physical building access that are already out there. You can take those, read them, and make them yours. And it is something that I suggest that you look into as part of your not only IT security, but your physical security for any of your facilities. So the next thing we kind of wanted to talk about, first of all, does anybody have any questions? We'll open this up for just a second for questions before we move on to the next topic. Hey, they're saying that your sound is better, Tom, so...
Awesome. I will comment, and if you guys don't know who Jason Street, probably he's done this talk a couple times. It's called "Still Everything, Kill Everyone, and Cause Total Financial Ruin." That's the title of the talk. It's an outstanding talk about physical security, and he's a guy who gets paid as a red team to breach places.
Very nice. There's a lot of sensitivities to that. I work with an auditor, a nationwide auditor, and they used to do that kind of stuff, but the liability got so high they actually got out of the business.
He makes a joke about going to a hospital, and I'm sorry, not a hospital, a hotel, and he says, "I will be able to get into your fridge wearing pajamas," and then takes a selfie with this with all the staff of the fridge at 2 in the morning in his pajamas.
That
They
is
let
awesome.
and he also videoed it. He had access to everything. They let him alone there.
That is so crazy, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's you hear us as security professionals, we're always, saying like, oh, make sure that the fire marshal's the fire marshal, and but like literally these people that get paid to do this, they will come in dressed as the bug control guy, and they'll plug an access point into your network, and then you get an F on your report.
Yep.
It's absolutely awesome.
You've probably seen the photo I posted this morning, and it's funny that I'm going to post it on my Twitter later, but no one questioned that I pulled over on the side of the road, grabbed the screwdriver, opened up a terminal box, and had to do a speed test on the side of the road. And I'm in a pretty nice rural area, and there's cars just driving by. No one questions that I'm taking something apart.
I mean, now is that a client of yours? I saw that. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually a client. I'm actually supposed to be doing that, but no one questioned it at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you probably looked like you knew what you were doing, and you had a little bit of confidence about you, and sometimes that's all it takes to waltz right in a place and own it.
Yep, and it's funny how so few people will say anything. Just like, he's taking something apart on the side of the road. Yep. That looks fine.
Yep. We do, at my day job, we do yearly end-user security training, and one thing that we always stress is if you don't know who someone is and they say that they're here to do whatever, you find somebody that is related to that, whatever they're supposed to be, and you make sure that that person is supposed to be there. And security is not just a once a year training. It's something that you really have to live. You have to integrate it into the fabric of your life, and just make sure that you're being diligent. And it's like anything else, is it working? Is it sometimes if we make things too cumbersome, and this I will argue with other information security professionals, that if we make the security too draconian, that users will find a way to circumvent it anyway, and then we will have a bigger problem on our hands. We have to find the balance between usability
there's the
and
balance,
security.
but then like someone messaged me today about FreeNAS and talking about how I like to encrypt all my drives, and like, well, how do you handle the keys? I'm like, this. They're like, well, that seems inconvenient. I'm like, that's kind of the idea. If it was easy, it wouldn't be secure.
Yeah, and if you go out, so a lot of great guiding documents on security, physical and otherwise, can be found at nist.gov.
Yes.
and they have a whole section on key management and how you should handle keys and things like that. And the first time you read it, you're gonna go, but and that's another thing. You can read it, and if you don't understand it, reach out to Tom, reach out to me, reach out to Chris, reach out to, these people that you can see, and just ask questions. Just don't fly blind, because, I don't always charge you. You can, I probably get 50 emails a week that I don't think are billing worthy. It's a quick question. Hey, what do you think about this? So if it's something like that, like, oh, hey, I'm trying to manage my keys, and this is kind of what I was thinking, what do you think? I'll give you an answer. Like, I'm not going to charge you my hourly
Yeah,
rate to
and
answer a
I do
simple
a lot of that
question.
too. I send out not always, sometimes people think maybe I'll be a little smart ass, but I have messaged out Jason Street's video because people say, "Hey, what about physical security?" I'm like, this guy does it for a living. He does it better than me. His video, he's very open about how he does it. I said, watch his video. It'll make you think differently about physical security.
Yeah.
People think, oh, you're copping out just sending a link. I'm like, no, no. Seriously, I sent you something of value. Like I've curated links for replies.
Yeah.
Because they're how I learned. And unless I think I can do something better than the video I watched, I'm not going to redo it. I mean, he does a great
Yeah.
job on that. So
Yeah.
I'm like, he kills it in an hour talk about physical security. It would be because it's very action based. He talks about what he actually did and how he got through security.
That's
So it's one of those, yeah, it's a good reference. And then, me and you, I'll now reference this video for us talking about physical
right.
security.
Right.
This will be another reply.
Yeah. Well, I remember. It's probably been 8 years ago. I went to Clifton Larson Allen is the name of the company now, but they're a huge nationwide auditor, and they have an IT side, and they do IT audits, and they do like the University of Illinois. And one of the guys that was the head security auditor, his name is Matthew Bernberg, and I don't know if he's listening to this or not. I'm connected with him on LinkedIn, and I've met him a few times, and I went and I watched him talk about his military days, but then also talk about how by just intercepting a single piece of mail, he could end up with a driver's license with his picture and my name on it, and basically just take over my identity. I fear no man. This dude made me nervous, and so I actually reached out to him several months ago, and he's like, "Where was that talk at?" And then he replied with a little sly smile, and he's like, "Yeah, state of Illinois is making it harder for me to do that." So I mean, there are people out there absolutely that if I could find that talk, I would post it. It really does make you think differently. Some of these guys, man, they're out there, and I think people think that maybe they're so far out there that sometimes it takes a little while, and it's got to sit out there and percolate. And people have to watch it and think about it before it starts clicking.
Yeah, I was noticed Rodney Connor made a message on there talking about people leaving credentials on the cabinet. Funny, terrible thing happened. So there's a couple of these. Me and you belong to at least one of them together, but these groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
And someone started the usual thread of, "Hey, post your server room," and this guy did. And right behind him, he's like selfieing in the server room. Everything is right there on the wall, printed, so it's super easy to read.
I didn't
He
see
couldn't
that.
take it down, and it became an admin problem because he took it down, like he deleted the post, but don't worry, it kept getting reposted back to the thread. Then someone says, "I know where that is. I know he worked for whatever company." They knew which company he worked for, and they said, "We're emailing his boss." I really don't know how bad it went for the guy. I'm sure not well. Hopefully he changed all those passwords, but
Well,
yeah, never a good idea. Like never post any of your passwords where they easily can be seen by passersby. It's a
well,
horrible idea.
anytime that I ever post anything, I'm going to give away some of the secret sauce to my YouTube channel and my Instagram and my Twitter. Anytime I post anything and there's something in the background, I want you to see it. And I put it there on purpose. So, or if there's a URL on the screen, I will put those things there. And I have to give props to everybody that follows me. There are some very observant people out there. Very observant.
Yes, there was an article about how they were able to reverse engineer someone's Bitcoin that was in the background on the screen to figure out that it was an article I read about a few weeks ago. It was pretty clever. It was an interview about someone, and that's how they were able to get the guy's Bitcoin wallet information because he had it pulled up on the screen to log in, but he had the QR code in the background behind him.
That's awesome. So,
And
speaking of that, I really like the video that you did on Mr. Robot because Mr. Robot,
yes,
it's one of my top 5 shows. I actually I
yes,
keep this right by my desk. Um, So go over to Tom's. Go over to Tom's channel. He does a breakdown of Mr. Robot and the Easter eggs, and if you're a detail oriented person and you're naturally curious, Tom does a good job of breaking down how you can start finding the Easter
Oh, is
eggs
it
in
fun?
Mr. Robot. You know, that show will take you so far down the rabbit hole. So, I mean, you got to watch each episode like twice. You really do.
It's so this is funny. It's a it didn't get as popular. It's on my channel. I don't remember how many views it has. I haven't looked in a while. But what's really funny is I did it. I did it twice. I did it one visually, and did the video. I did it a second time as an episode of our Sunday morning Linux Shoot podcast. So just because of everyone being on vacation at the same time, we didn't have the we didn't have a show, but I had time to make one. So I did a solo show, and I do those once in a while just to fill in.
Right.
And I did the entire one as a podcast, and we've gotten a ton of feedback on how much they liked that episode, and how many people, because they searched for it, found it, and they discovered our podcast because I did a episode on Mr. Robot.
Yeah, yeah. Real quick, I want to reference some of the comments. So somebody said, "Do we have any opinions on Unify 5.6.22?" It's funny that you should say that because I'm actually working on. I'm trying to get two other videos out today besides the live stream. The first one is a Unify 5.6.22 video. There's a lot of changes, a lot of things that I like. There is also a video on the LEGO Wave Infinity access points coming. Also, I don't, you guys, Chris Sherwood. Hey, Chris, he's out there, and I am actually going to defend him right now. Chris is actually not a dick. If you've ever met the man, he's one of the most sincere people. What you get on YouTube is what you get in real life. And if you're going to get pissed off for me defending my friend, you can go ahead and we don't need you on the live stream. He's trying to run a business, feed his family, if he's not going to answer questions, he comes with a certain skill set. That's just like I told you. Like if it's a quick answer, I'm going to answer it. But if it's anything that requires a lot of work and things like that, you're probably going to fall into like an hourly billing. But Chris is definitely not a dick. Chris is a nice guy. When I met him in person for the first time at Wispapalooza, uh, and this is not in a this is in a he gave me a hug in the middle of this conference, and it was like, oh man, he's like, come here, buddy. And I mean, no, Chris is really a sincere guy. Tom's talked to Chris quite a bit too. What's your take, Tom?
Oh, Chris is a really nice guy, and I think that's part of the problem. It's a perception thing, and this happens to me somewhat with my business. So I'm not as big on YouTube as Chris, but my business has been around for 14 years, and we have over 6,632 clients right now overall. And it's funny how people, like, I've been in business for a long time, so people get mad at me when I can't answer every question directly as me. I have an entire staff, but then they get mad that I can't answer. Like, I only want Tom to come out. And I'm like, well, Tom's in New York right now, so we can come out. And then people are like, well, he doesn't have time for me. He got too big. I'm like, well, yes, no. I mean, I try my best to reply to everyone, and I spent till 1 a.m. replying to everybody on YouTube who ever comments. We all do the best we can, but he's also got a channel 10 times the size. There comes a point when you simply can't respond to everyone in a timely manner, because they literally, like you said, you get 50 emails a week. Once your channel gets 10 times the size, how much does that expand to? 500 emails a week?
And that's the thing. So, in full disclosure, Chris and I have a very well, I don't know if he would consider it tightly integrated, but I consider it a tightly integrated business relationship. So if you reach out to Crosstalk Solutions, there's a chance that you may end up working with Willie Howe as a subcontractor. And I am trying to build that relationship further and further and further, as much as Chris will let me. All the other guys that do subcontracting for Chris are great guys too. Plus, I do my own consulting. So, and Tom, if you're looking for remote consultants, I might know a guy.
Might know. All right.
So,
that's the beauty of a lot of what we do now, is so much of our work can be done remotely.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I have good local clients, and I'm trying to build that local base. But I also have a lot of great remote clients. So
right, because we do want to move on to another segment. I will mention this. So, what's the interest people have in talking about data centers? If we could get a guest on that could talk about data centers.
heck yeah.
So throw us some messages on that, or a tweet at me or Willie. because I have a few friends that work for very large companies, including one of them, and I can find out how much you can talk about going to military data centers. They have amazing security procedures.
Oh yes,
So,
absolutely they
yeah.
do.
Their
Um,
security. This is like how you enter. You stop at the gate. The data center is a quarter mile away from anything. You have to drive a special car, or gunmen will fire on you. You have to get out of your car. They have a special escort car. That's the only car allowed to approach the data center. Is one of their vehicles.
is it like a clown car?
Yes, a clown car. You have to get in their clown car. If you don't get in their clown car, they will shoot at you. There
That
are armed guards that are said, if a car approaches that's not one of our vehicles, you must shoot at it.
that is that that is that's amazing. That
That's
is
how they
yeah.
control. That way, no one can even spoof the vehicle. It's so yeah.
That is awesome. Cool. So let's go ahead
I want to talk a
and
little bit about password man. Someone mentioned this, and it's not exactly in our security topics list, but I think it's a good one. It's talking
okay.
about password management.
Sure. Sure. Go ahead and open that one up, Tom.
All right. So someone asked, "What do we think of password managers?" And I honestly don't know what Willie thinks of password managers, but I am of the opinion of I like them. I'm particularly a fan of LastPass, and I've been really happy with that one. There's a couple more of them coming out, and there's an open source one that I know someone's been working on. There's Dashlane and OnePass, another one. I think it's what it's called. There's a few of them out there, and I like LastPass because they've been around for a long time, thoroughly vetted. Any of their responses to uh, issues have been so fast compared to other companies. They have been like so open and so fast has been really, really uh, outstanding.
I enjoy your videos on LastPass, and I don't know if you've seen my Angry Cloud. I'm working on trademarking that, but anyway, I did the Angry Cloud videos, and when LastPass got hacked, I drew one, and LastPass was on fire, and the cloud's laughing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do share your viewpoint that this thing is out there. It's taking all the hits, and it is a better product because it's being so thoroughly vetted. If I were to use a cloud-based password manager, LastPass would probably be my choice. There's one other one, I can't remember the name of it, but the password manager that I've been tinkering with is actually one that's offline, where your keyring gets stored locally. So I'm not anti password manager. It's just like anything else that I do with the cloud. I stick my little finger in and see how it is, and then kind of start playing with it. So no, totally. If it works for you, and as long as you're not like making your password 1 2 3 4 5 6, you're and LastPass and these programs actually shouldn't let you have a simple password like that. Then you should be in good shape. So, like I said, I'm not anti. I like to vet things like that.
Well, in LastPass, probably the most vetted one I've done in depth. I've done a couple in depth reviews of LastPass. I see someone mention KeyPass. KeyPass is a really nice one too, but like you said, it's a local one only. LastPass is nice because as I generate and create all these passwords on any website, I have 3 different computers I use. So, and it's synchronized with all 3 simultaneously. So I create a new login, new account here. The other challenge I have is I have a staff of 9, and I have to share my passwords with my staff on certain things. If
Yeah.
I change a password, I then have to go back and change the password. And we host a few hundred websites, so we've used it to make it really smooth and transition on that, because LastPass has really smooth sharing features that do not share the password. It only shares a hash between them to understand the password, so no passwords ever get passed around. So it's really a nice way. We don't write any passwords down. I can just create a password for a client. I can share it amongst my staff in a group folder. It also makes it very easy if I have to revoke access. The reality is, being in business 14 years, I've had fire people. I don't have to wonder what they have access to. I can easily revoke access to everything they have access to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Stuart says, still doesn't protect you from phishing. My wife and her business partner got phished yesterday. That's why end user training is so crucial, because no matter how secure we build your network, humans are the weak link, and phishing happens. Tom, have you seen the latest Amazon emails going around that say that you've
Yes.
won a $25 Amazon gift card? Click here, and it looks like a legit Amazon email, and all it's doing is it's harvesting your credentials. So when you end up buying Christmas for the hacker down the street, you'll remember that.
Yeah. Um, the the problem with some of those emails is a lot of people don't have two-factor turned on because that two factors are really nice help. So
Yeah, two-factor authentication. In fact, if you have to be PCI compliant, if you have network segments that are PCI compliant, I'm not sure about HIPAA because I've just started kind of looking into that. But I know a fact for PCI compliance, if I am going to remote in and the network segment that I'm remoting into is under PCI compliance, I have to have two-factor authentication. And in fact, actually, if you go look at NIST, it's probably a best practice to have two-factor authentication for remote access anyway. So,
right.
and the thing is, with two-factor authentication, it's really something easy. It used to be like this thing, and you had to have this software talk to that software. I remember the first time I did it on a Cisco VPN. I had to have a server and special software and special tokens, and now it's available for free. There is no excuse to not be using two-factor authentication.
Yeah, I really recommend TOTP two factor. That's what my favorite is. I wish everyone supported it. Most people do. So the big guys do, like Google and Microsoft. But man, it's I'm glad though. I use Hover for all my web registration because I've just not been happy with a lot of the other companies. They support standard TOTP authentication as well. You can also use it for things like SSH and lots of others. Matter of fact, something novel. One my recent video about TOTP authentication is I show and share a Bash script that you can do TOTP with. So if you know the key, you can actually generate the tokens in a terminal with the keys.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's absolutely
because
awesome.
what I did was when I wanted to explain TOTP, I wanted to show the math behind it. So I actually go through the Bash code, not in absolute detail, but in rough detail, to show you this is the actual how few lines of code it takes to produce a time-based token.
Yeah. Well, and I've got some videos coming up. It's getting colder, and the days are getting shorter, so I think I'm trying to get more videos. Tom, you know how difficult it is to get videos done. It is difficult. People, if you look at our three channels, I probably have the shittiest editing of all three because I like hit the road. Like I do a video in like 15 minutes. I cut some stuff out so it looks like I'm stuttering or I've got a glitch, and then I post it. So I'm not even spending as much time editing as the other guys are, and it still takes a lot of time to get a video out, that is coherent, I mean, you could watch me cuss for 2 hours, but that's not going to do anything good. You know what I mean? But
I don't think people have any appreciation for how big the project starts and how many hours of video are there. Like there's 6 hours of video recorded for my less than an hour post.
well, and if you watched any of our live streams from that network that went live, like I still have, I let Monty, the guy who pulls cable for me, I let him use this camera, and I was like, hey man, can you explain to people as you do this structured cabling? Show them how to punch down, explain the colors, explain why we do this. And so there's like 8 hours of footage, and you try to take that and make it coherent into a 15-minute video where people don't fall asleep on structured cabling. That in itself is a challenge. And then I had to listen to him complain about how it slowed him down because he had to record and make sure that the lighting was good. And, so it's, the videos, I love putting the content out. But how we went off the rails right there was Synology. I've got some Synology videos coming out. Synology supports two-factor authentication, and it's free. So, and you can use Google Authenticator on your phone with Synology. So if you've got a VPN or you want to remote access, a lot of these NAS systems, and Tom, you'll have to fill us in on FreeNAS. I quit using FreeNAS in production about 3 years ago when I started switching to Synology, so you'll have to answer this question. But Synology is almost making the VPN go the way of the dodo because everything can be done through a web browser or through apps.
The way we do this is, FreeNAS being web enabled and everything you can do through the web interface. But even with our pfSense, with our clients, VPNs are so easy to deploy with OpenVPN. We frequently, the way we remote in is with a VPN. So there's no external ports exposed other than the OpenVPN port. And then we're using Keyed, which I just did 2 videos on OpenVPN with pfSense, which uses keyed authentication. So it's not just username pass, it's username pass and you need a key that was generated. So makes it really solid. But that's how I don't like exposing, and it's not because I don't trust, like, for example, Synology. I believe they did a great job with their two-factor, but this is always where the butt comes in. Look at Heartbleed. If they build it on technology and we find a flaw in that, and you have hundreds of clients that all have a web port exposed, and it's not the Synology's fault, it'd be something that they used in their stack that causes. Or we can look at Equifax and say, wow,
Oh,
a small flaw in the Java libraries, the Java stack, that flaw, without being patched, meant they found a way in.
yeah.
So I always make sure we start with VPN. We never leave anything exposed on the clients unless there's some request by them to do it, and then we'll filter anything that's even allowed to see that port.
So, so speaking of that, so what I like about the one thing that I like about Unify, if you follow me on Twitter and Instagram, you saw that I posted a picture this morning where I upgraded to 5.6.22 from my phone. Right, that Unify controller is just using the conduit that Ubiquiti provides, so there's no exposed ports. So I like using those services when I can. Synology has their quickconnect.to site where you don't have to expose those ports either. Now it does slow it down a little bit because they are providing that conduit, but
Yeah.
there are some alternatives. But even then, if we have a problem, and I'm not sure what web servers they're running, if it's Nginx, if it's Apache, I don't know, but if it's a protocol based, standards based problem, then we're still going to face that. So I see it from both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
I want to address something real quick. I'm sorry for hijacking this. Somebody said that the first thing that I need to do is fix my background. So if you're watching my videos, you will remember that I had a blue background a few weeks ago. And what happened was we went to Vegas. We went out to Wispapalooza, and we dodged the Legionnaire's disease and the bed bugs at the Rio. That's a whole different story. But then a tree fell on our house. We had a storm and a tree fell on our house. We come home, and so the contractors are so backed up right now, Tom. They're so backed up that since then, and that was the weekend of October 12th, I haven't had gutters on the front of my house. And I've never had water in the basement in this one particular area by our air conditioning unit. But the water was coming straight down instead of following the gutters, and we actually ended up with water in there. So I grabbed my backboard, which is a 2x4 piece of plywood that I painted. I was actually going to mount some equipment to it, like a telco room. And so it is actually wedged up against a window outside, going off the top of my air conditioner unit like a gutter. And then from there, I have a child sled wedged in between the air conditioning unit and the porch. So the water, instead of dripping down right along the foundation, is it's following a nice little man-made path until they can get here and put gutters on my house.
Oh, what a mess.
Yeah, it is a mess. So, and no, I don't have bed bugs. The Rio had bed bugs. Go out to Facebook and join the WISP group and go back to October 12th, and you can see people complain about the Rio. Next year, I think we'll Uber to the Rio, but I don't think we're going to stay there. Anyway, next topic, Tom. You want to open it up?
Next topic. Plethora of firewalls that exist. Are they all the same?
Ooh.
Boy, that's a can of worms. This is like a religious debate now. So I'm gonna say this. I have been, and this starts in the '90s for me. So seriously, back when I worked in corporate, I was beating the drum for this, and I got to be in charge of things when I was young, and I'm in charge of things now in a whole different way. But
Right.
they allowed me to pick the firewalls. Well, I have been doing software-defined networking on firewalls, and people told me I was crazy. I should be doing this and doing that. I mean, this goes back to IPCOP like 17 years ago.
Yep.
And actually, before IPCOP, there was a tool called Mandrake Firewall, which you can probably Google it. It's in an archive somewhere.
Yep.
But it all comes down to the software-defined firewalls. I have always been a huge fan because at the heart of it, all firewalls are somewhat software-defined. You often buy firmware, but I've been a big advocate of open source in a firewall because, and we're looking at you, Fortinet, Juniper, and every other big company. Y'all have put some back doors in them things for ease of use and things like that. There's so many bad things. I'm like, I want to be able to understand and trust the firewalls. I like the flexibility. And now, granted, the early software-defined firewalls did not have the routing speeds you would get out of a direct Cisco box. But we have come a long way. Now you can get a pfSense box, buy it for really reasonable. I've reviewed some of those Protect Teles. No problem, gigabit speed routing on an affordable box with an amazing set of features because of the pfSense software. So Are they all the same? pfSense is kind of the king of it, and I trust them. I do know there's some other companies, like there's a fork of pfSense. People have been asking me to review. I don't know how I feel about it though. There's been a lot of mixed emotions when I read in the forums about it.
Well, OpenSense, if that's the one you're talking
Yeah.
about, the one thing I like about OpenSense is their menu structure makes sense. Whereas pfSense, the menu is the downfall, in my opinion, of pfSense for someone who's not of the same mind as a lot of us who work in firewalls all the time. I think pfSense is hugely confusing. Do you remember though MonoWall?
Yep.
I used to run MonoWall before pfSense, and I remember when pfSense was forked, and I'm like, oh, what's this garbage? And now look at it, you know. But we used to run IP Cop. You know, we had IP Fire, Devil
Yep.
Linux. You know, now there's Untangle. If you're a home user, you can get Sophos, which I actually have a hardware Sophos sitting here that's going to a client down in Jamaica. Um, there's Indian Firewall, which is excellent. You know, there's what Clark Connect.
I liked
There's, I
Indian
mean,
for a long time, and I imagine they still have this. A really slick VPN setup where you could just create a config file and copy that config file to the other one. It would just make the VPN happen. They still do that, don't they?
um,
It's been a long time
I've
since I used
never.
Indian.
I've got to be honest with you. I've never done site-to-site VPN with Indian. I always used it in a content filter UTM type application. Same thing with Untangle. Now, the one time I did experiment with site-to-site VPNs with Untangle, then it turns out you had to buy the commercial module. So
Yes.
I put an edge router in instead. So
Yeah. Now, Untangle, I really like them. Other than I think they're for some of the small business clients I have, they might be a little bit expensive if you buy their commercial versions. And Untangle and pfSense probably are your two big leaders in this. And Sophos is doing pretty well too. Uh, One of the reasons why is because they make hardware that matches up with it. So if you don't want to just build your own, roll your own, and worry about it, you can then go, okay, I want a pfSense with the pfSense Netgate hardware, and now you have a absolutely configurable support contract and everything. Now, when it comes to some of the advanced features, this is one of the things that one of my friends who works directly for the Linux Foundation, they like pfSense. They can't talk about everything they do inside there, but what he kind of explained to me, they can't say they use it, but they can say they has a lot of good features. pfSense was one of the only things that was able to handle, because he does some other contract work for a company with their Amazon cloud and their failovers.
uh-huh.
Their The way pfSense worked was the fastest. They tried it. They spent $15,000 with Cisco, and it wouldn't work right. They spent nothing with pfSense other than the time it took to configure them and some consulting fees. Less money, better performance on their connection, and they
Well,
had a massive fiber pipe between their office and their AWS.
so the Cisco thing, right? They spent 15 grand with Cisco.
Yep.
Here is a 50. This is the size of a $15,000 Cisco firewall.
Yeah.
Cisco had its place, Tom. I don't know, man. They've priced themselves out. You know this stuff. I don't know. Meraki's reached out to me. I've got a Meraki AP sitting here. I'm gonna flash it with something different. But you're absolutely right. There's absolutely no reason why people can't follow some of your videos, my videos, and spin up some of these open source distros that are free, and look at this and get a good look and feel for it. I had a boss who was absolutely petrified of Linux because he didn't understand it, and he was. I don't speak ill of other people very often, but this dude was just too lazy to go out and learn it.
Yep.
It's all,
There is. Yeah.
you know
I
what
know
I
people
mean.
like that.
So,
Ah.
but I do. We run pfSense. Where I run Untangle a lot is actually in a transparent bridge, and
Its
so
filtering is nice. That's a nice. They're really good at that.
yeah. So, and I haven't done this client down in Jamaica. It's a law firm. I can't give you the name or any real specifics, but they have a certain set of security requirements that they have to hit. Unfortunately, those security requirements could not be met with an edge router or a USG. But the Sophos firewall fit the package, and so I've never actually configured one of these. So I'm going to take it out of the box. I'm going to do a video on it. I'm going to take it out of the box. I'm going to configure it. and then they're going to pass their security compliance. And he said that in 3 years we'll look at switching to something different. So I'm hoping that in 3 years, I got to think that Ubiquiti, especially now that the lead developer and founder of pfSense works for Ubiquiti, I would think that they actually have heard it enough time and time and time again that, hey, you guys need to get UTM. Hey, you need to get UTM. That I have to think that they've got to be considering it at some level.
Yeah, I imagine so. Someone says, guys, what does the feature in firewalls that limits the size? I don't know about limiting the size download, or unless you're referring to bandwidth capping or traffic shaping, but limiting the size of a specific file downloaded,
That's some advanced voodoo right there.
I mean, it can be done, but
Yeah.
that requires full inspection of it because pretty much everything is SSL now.
Yeah.
And someone else asked about connecting for a VPN client. Now, I did. This is one of the reasons I just did the videos with pfSense and OpenVPN. One of the really cool features is there's a plugin that's free called the Client Export Utility that comes with that you can load into pfSense. I have a whole video on how to set the VPN up, how to load that utility, and how to deploy it. It creates auto deployment executables for Windows, so you can set the VPN up on your server, download the file, double click, and next and yes your way into a working VPN with very little knowledge.
Yeah.
And I really like that. We use it for a lot of deployments because it's very simple to deploy, and it doesn't require when you're setting up, because especially because if you set it up with multiple certificates, it'll take care of the multiple certificates for you, which is a really great feature.
Yeah. And Synology will do that as well. Barracuda, I'm actually experimenting with getting rid of Barracuda SSL VPN servers because I think I could drop a Synology in and do the exact same thing. Reverse tunnels and reverse proxy and all those kinds of things. But it also will create that executable package for you. You got to admit, Tom, it's kind of fun when you throw the open VPN client at somebody and then watch them try to figure out where to stick the config files. The
Yeah.
first time, it's kind of a circus, and I mean, because I'm going to tell you, I was lost too. I had to RTFM and experiment. But Tom, I want you to take over for just a second. I got to use the men's room, and I'll be right back.
Okay. So let's see what other questions are in here. Someone asked about backups, everything, flash and pass, smooth wall, pfSense. Sorry, when I get talking to Willie, I didn't get to read this. I'm reading all your live stream right now. I know there's a delay from you hearing me say this and that. So snort IDS and WAN interface, or is it overkill? So firewalls and the intrusion detection system specifically would talk about snort. If you snort's really good. Snort rule sets are really their secret sauce that makes their system amazing. I did a video on Suricata, and what Suricata does is you can use the same snort rule set, but it's a newer rewrite of what snort does for IDS. Has a lot of features, has a lot of great control. Let me throw the name of my channel, which is Lawrence Systems. We can't post links in here, by the way. I think I've commented that, but Lawrence, let me type it in. I spelled YouTube wrong, but I think you guys will spell it right. But if you look up Lawrence Systems, and that's actually the name of my company, lawrencesystems.com, which will take you directly to my company page, along with at the bottom you can find all my other social media links and YouTube links and things like that. So, yeah, Snort IDS is really good. Suricata, I think, is a little bit better, but it uses the same Snort rule sets. And whether or not IDS is worth it, it all depends if you take action with it. So if you just create a bunch of notices for yourself, that's cool. You want to know how many times you were attacked? That's cool too. What you have to do is take action on those notices. If you see something coming in and are guessing at passwords on like an RDP port, you should have an alert set for that. And that alert, instead of just notifying you, should actively block the person that's trying to use an exploit. And that's where your IDS actually becomes effective, is when you use it to actively block an attack that you see coming in. Mm-hmm. Then it becomes useful. But it also becomes annoying sometimes. And this is where my review of Suricata has a lot of details on how to tune it. And it comes down to you have to actively manage it. The really detailed part of it is understanding that you don't want just to block everything, or then you make a system that is unusable, and it's a real pain in the butt. So
yeah,
there's a lot of fine tuning. There's a lot of active management. This is why you have just security teams that sit around watching this for companies. You know, security as a service when it comes to firewall management. I know a couple of guys that work for CBI Secure. They're a big security firm here in Detroit. That's what their team sits and does at their stock. They're just sitting there chilling and watching for security alerts and determining whether or not they're real or not coming in those networks. It still takes kind of a human element. There's companies working to automate it as fast as possible, but as soon as you automate something, someone figures out how the automated system pegs them, so they then start working around it. So we haven't really, because we have the human element on one side, we can only automate certain amounts of it on the other side.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I love being able to, pfSense, OpenSense, great examples of a UTM with a very easy to use IDS IPS system. But you've got to be careful what you do, and you do kind of have to understand it. And the Synology RT2600 AC that I've got here has IPS built into it, right? So I turned it on, I stick the flash drive in, I configure it, and I'm seeing some like funny traffic, and it's classifying this traffic as an attack, right? And it says it's coming from a server farm in Europe, and I'm like, what is this? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and block it. So guess what happened? When I blocked that traffic, I was no longer able to open any of my remote cloud keys under the Ubiquiti Unify hosted portal. So how we use the web RTC, something in the Ubiquiti code triggered my IDS IPS, and when I saw that, I was like, "Whoa, it's in Eastern Europe! Ah, shit, somebody's spying on me," you know. And I was like, block, and then all of a sudden, I can't manage any of my cloud keys. So you do have to, you do have to experiment, read, and
And
understand it. You know.
and one of the challenges that we're really seeing is pretty much everything, even if it's not on an SSL port per se, it's using some other control port. They're using different levels of TLS SSL inside of that security. So these tools like Suricata, they're only so good because they can't always see inside the packets to truly understand what they're doing. So they use a series of pattern recognition, and it can be a real pain for them. And this is that really tricky part of security. The more we encrypt, the more difficult we have understanding what the traffic is and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and intercepting SSL is not as cut and dry as you think it would be. And
right.
if you're going to do it, and you are going to, you have to spend a lot of money to do it properly. It's not something that I would just suggest implementing in your company without a lot of research. Check out some of the higher end, like Palo Alto. If I was going to do it, I would probably go with like a Palo Alto, uh, you know, set of hardware. But
Yeah, and there's even more to it. So, in just to give a brief overview, what you have to do to make that work is you have to have the devices that are behind the firewall that you want to have the SSL, or between whatever the SSL inspection device is. They have to have a trusted certificate. So you have to add it to the trust store of that device. So right away, you've just ruled out pretty much all the IoT because they rarely have any methodology by which to do this. So anything IoT doesn't see it. Then you have PFW for perfect forward PFS, perfect forward secrecy.
right.
You have that. That adds another layer because there's
Well,
a second
I was going to
key.
say explain that, because it actually PFS will actually roll the keys every time a
Yes.
connection is created.
Yeah. So it rolls it, and it becomes a bigger problem because now you have a encryption layer that sent off a Diffie-Hellman key to set up another encryption layer with a new nonce that was negotiated between here. So it's getting harder to do, and some sites, including banking websites that use more advanced versions of SSL and detection, and they look for certificates, they go, wait a minute, there's something else installed in this computer. We can't trust it. And we've ran into this where
Mm-hmm.
if you have the deep packet inspection based on an SSL device in there, and then you have one of those check readers, the check reader loads its own software, so it has its own stack to communicate with the bank securely. It doesn't like those certificates, and it breaks.
Well, and we've actually seen, I've actually seen live, PNC has software that we have to load on some machines, and it actually monitors the traffic and reports back to PNC what's going on from the client workstation. So there's a lot of really heavy-handed voodoo to make sure that your banking transactions are authentic. And if you go monkeying with that, who knows what's going to happen?
Yes. And this is one of the problems with antivirus. Antivirus also has to install a trust certificate. So you really have to trust your antivirus because in order for them to do their job, they need to break SSL by installing their own trust certificate within your computer. This is a big problem with the antivirus and why I'm seeing a trend, and I'm pretty sure this is what's going to happen. Bye bye all the antivirus companies. You're going away because Microsoft's going, you know what, we got this and we're just going to do it better. I know this from going at the big Microsoft conference. It's called the ATP system, the Azure Advanced Threat Protection, that comes with some of the dashboards that the corporate companies are getting. They're going to just kill off the company even having a desire for a third party antivirus. So it's going to be pretty soon Microsoft only. I don't like that monoculture idea because then we're going to be relying on one piece there. But the other side of it, that's I don't know that there's another solution other than we'll get maybe to the last part if we have time. We'll get to that about software signing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I only trust Kaspersky, so
Our government trusts Kaspersky.
well, I mean, I don't know. The only thing I'm going to say about it is the federal government needs to put up or shut up. And I think that if the problem that I have with Kaspersky handing the source code over, I have a real big problem with that because they're closed source. I mean, that's their bread and butter. I don't know. If they were going to do it, they should have done it earlier in the game because now I think it's a lost cause. I know they're doing it, but the code review won't even start until
Well,
2018.
and you run into this as a problem. So cool. You showed me the code that didn't have the back door in it. Awesome. Here's the only way, and this is a really difficult thing to do, and this is actually happening a lot in the Linux world, is it's called reproducible binaries. And there's a whole project. Now, amazing that in the Debian, they're the furthest ahead in this project is the Debian distribution. I think they're at like 80 something percent. And what that means is they can take the source code and they have to tell you which GCC compiler there is. And when you take the source, you compile it, you will get an MD5 hash the same on the compiled version as the input source.
That's
That's
nice.
really hard to do, but that's the only way you know that that source code was what built that binary.
Right.
So that's an important aspect. That's really difficult because now Kaspersky would then have to, okay, we examine this source code. Now we have to compile it and compare it to the output to tell that there's not a difference.
Yeah.
That's the only way a code review makes any sense. If not, it's all dog and pony show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But and not to get too political, there's a lot of that these days. All right, so let's move on to the next thing: encrypting data at rest, data in transit. And I see Tim Bear was on here, and I actually make Tim encrypt data at rest and in transit. So um, I think it's a good idea to encrypt data at rest if you've got the horsepower to be able to handle everything that goes along with that. So we design some forward-facing websites using WordPress that are not blogs, and they actually provide services for people where they can fill out like electronic forms. And part of the requirement that I had given to Tim was that A, everything in the database must be encrypted. B, I want it encrypted even though we're going to blow out any fields that we deem sensitive. So like once we create an encrypted PDF, the only thing I want to store in the database is first name, last name, address, right? If it's got driver's license number, anything else, poof, I just want it gone. And then the connection, we never put the MySQL server on the same box as the Apache server. We always run those as two separate boxes, and then we encrypt the traffic between them. And so the fields within the SQL database, MySQL, is encrypted. The connection between the Apache web server and the MySQL box is encrypted. And then, of course, we've got the SSL encryption on the front end. And so far, since we've implemented this, we get 4 audits a year. And so far, that thing has been. Yeah, I'm not going to say it's bulletproof because it's out there and people can hit it. But I'm going to tell you that we work very diligently to make sure that all the software is up to date, and that if there's a problem, which there hasn't been so far, that our auditor can competently explain that and how we can address it.
One of the other things too, and you tell me because I don't know much about Synologies. How does Synology handle encrypting the drives that are inside of it? So I pop a disk out in Synology. Well, let's say I pop them all out. If I took all your disks out, can I put them in our Synology and they're there?
That I don't know because I've never run the full disk encryption where I've had to remove a disk. So that would actually, I'm actually going to write that down, and I'm going to actually, we'll make a video out of that.
So in FreeNAS, this is how whenever we set up FreeNAS, we have all the disks encrypted. Now, my machine, because I'm wear a tinfoil hat, doesn't just have it encrypted. It actually requires a decryption key to boot. And what that means is if you were to physically remove my entire FreeNAS server from my building and go take it home with you, you would not be able to get any data without the key that is not stored on there. And FreeNAS is interesting because it does double encryption. And what double encryption is they have a keyed way to do it, and they have a stored key that they'll put on the USB for you. Now, the convenient way to do it is a stored key on a USB. You can set that up when you're setting up without a password. What that means, if I eject any drive, I can't put it in another pfSense box. Please note, by doing this, you are not able to recover anything off of these drives.
Yeah.
Like, even if you wanted to. So if you forget, and someone had mentioned this because they messaged me and asked me if there was a solution around it, I'm like, no. They goofed up, and they goofed up their USB drive and erased it and reloaded it and thought they would just re-import their array. This is an annoyance a little bit in FreeNAS. When you do the backup, it's a separate backup because the keys are created on a uh, per array basis, not just one key for each array. Each key gets its own, each array gets its own key. So if I make one big VDEV of these drives and in the same box have another group of drives, there's two keys. The keys are not backed up under the backup for the configuration. They're backed up in the storage manager. So if you don't have those backed up, all of your data is gone.
So,
Done.
so when, and I actually do have a couple virtual FreeNAS boxes left out there, and I replicate from an iOmega 4 disk NAS over to this FreeNAS server at the disaster recovery site. But we used to have a FreeNAS server. It was just an old refurbished HP Z series workstation. Had a Xeon processor, like 16 gigs of RAM. So we threw FreeNAS on it, and then what we would do is we would back up locally to that using rsync, and then the drives were encrypted. But then what we did was we had an encrypted backup to a USB drive, so we could take that hard drive off site every night. And to get to, we had keys that we loaded, and each hard drive had its own key, and then we had a place on the network that was encrypted where we kept those keys. And some people may say that's overkill, but I guarantee you that if I lost that drive in a taxi on the way home, the data would be irrecoverable.
Right. And that's with me running Linux. So we back up everything all the time. We have hourly backups during our business hours for all of our databases and business data. And all that this is the methodology. And I think I've actually done a video already covering this. One of the things we do is we take it, we encrypt it on the server itself. So it's encrypted prior to being transmitted. So it then uses SSH keys. We have a special SSH key defined for our backup servers, and it uses a key to SSH through SFTP that file to our FreeNAS. So it's just a series of encrypted files in there. And then we use syncing over a VPN to run that offsite, and it checks every 5 minutes if there's any new files, and it takes them all and takes them offsite. So
Yeah. Well, and if you've got the horsepower to do encryption on top of encryption, I personally don't see anything wrong with that, because our disaster recovery site is connected via VPN. So we've got the connection of the VPN, and then we encrypt everything going over the VPN tunnel. So, if you can do it, do it. It's just extra assurance, that something's
yep.
not going to accidentally get exposed.
Yeah, that's the whole goal. Is once you have the VM and everything, we've got everything you can to protect that. Then once the data leaves there, we want to make sure it's encrypted. So you can't just decrypt my database with all my client files in it and things like that.
So, cool. Yeah. So, check into whether your programs, if you have a website and you are taking, in every state and the federal government, they're going to define what is sensitive information, right? What is personally identifiable information. So in the state of Illinois, there's actually a law, and if you're watching this and you're from Illinois and you didn't know this, go out to the Secretary of State's website and look this stuff up so you can. I'm just not blowing this up your skirt. In the state of Illinois, whether you're online or a physical business, you have to protect even a driver's license number. They consider that personally identifiable information. And if you have a database in the state of Illinois, and you have first name, last name, and driver's license number, and one person in that database, you lose one record in that database, the state of Illinois can come in, they can fine you. They're broke enough, they may start enforcing this. You know what I mean? You are supposed to tell everyone. You have to disclose that to everyone in the database, even if you just lose one record and someone else is not affected that you can prove, just because they're in the same database, the state of Illinois says you have to disclose. And people, like, I think some people that have never been involved in an audit or even a disclosure of information, they don't understand that by the time that I lose a driver's license number for somebody, so all of the soft time, right, that hourly billable time when I could have been doing productive things, right? I've had to notify the authorities, and now there's an investigation there. If there's a regulatory body involved, now I've got to notify them. I need to notify the FBI. You know, there's this whole line of people you have to notify. So you waste all that time, right? So all that soft time, that's all gone. Then the brand damage that occurs, you know, and I see it. So I wonder how we forgive people so easily for being so stupid. Like Sony, they were keeping usernames and passwords in a plain text file. I will always refer back to Sony. Sony was very smart during all their data breaches, and not smart because they had data breaches, but in the fact that they took the total number of records that were breached and they divided it into the different companies under the Sony umbrella so that you didn't see it as one big number and Sony. The only way my son gets his PlayStation account, we go to the store and we buy a prepaid card. Sony never gets my payment information. I refuse. I don't trust them. If it was up to me, there wouldn't be a PlayStation in this house. That's how I am. I've got an Xbox, and that would have been fine. But you know, it's 2017. Kids are working on mom and dad simultaneously. You know, so he gets me. I wouldn't have a Sony product. That's just how I feel about it. Now I can't avoid it because they sneak their components into everything. But I just we forgive way too easily, in my opinion.
People like goldfish. Someone's already forgot what Equifax was.
Well, and that's
we haven't because we work in this world, but there's the consumer market. They've already forgot. It's not in the news anymore.
Yeah. Well, and like how many times do you hear this? Well, why do I got to change my password every 30 days? That's stupid. Okay, yeah, like let me just give you a little hint. Like Windows is broken. Microsoft, take this to Microsoft, Tom. I've got a couple real problems with the way my Windows Server comes out of the box. Now, if you're a Windows Server administrator, you're probably going to know this. If you're not, it probably still won't be a shock to you, right? So take this to the Microsoft conference. Tell them to fix this because as far as I know, it's still broken. I'm going to tell you about three things. First of all, any user account can add a computer to the domain, whether it's an administrative account or not. Okay? That's a problem to me. The second problem, even if I have a password requirement that says my password must be 9 characters, it must have uppercase, lowercase, I can't use the last 12 passwords, right? So I could make my password Tom Lawrence, since I'm Willie Howe. I can make my password 1 Tom Lawrence with a capital T, exclamation point, right? Next time my password changes, all I got to do is change the number 1 on the front to the number 2, and Windows Server will let me update my password. That's broken. That is BS, Microsoft. Fix that junk. And then number 3, if I have a server that has a domain, right? Let's say that the domain is, we'll just use Microsoft's, contoso.com, right? I've got a domain, contoso.com. I know someone's credentials. Let's say that the administrator was on the ball. He went and he changed it, because you can change it in the security policy where a normal user account cannot add a machine to the domain. Why you have to tweak that, I don't know. So let's say I know some credentials. Somebody left a sticky note, right? But they're a non-user. And I don't want to sit at their desk, right? All I got to do is know the domain name, right? Change the work group on my machine to that domain name, create a user account with the same username and password, and then log into that workstation, and that workstation will automatically pass those credentials off to the server, and I can get access to whatever the user has. These things have been broken since freaking NT 4.0. Fix it, Microsoft.
See, I've never understood this either. So we're doing a deployment next week for adding Duo for one of our clients for all their RDP logins. Why is that? Why is TOTP authentication, which has been around forever, not an option for Windows Remote Desktop? Why does it have to be a third party? Why that is such an easy thing to implement, which is one of the things I talk about in my TOTP video. Look how few lines of code this is to have a time-based authentication token to log in, and they don't have it. I'm like, why? Why? I mean, they're going to be using Duo. Duo is a great solution for security if you haven't used it for good two-factor, and they're a Michigan-based company down the street from us.
Nice.
Uh, but why isn't that anything natively built into Microsoft for that? I'm like, why this? It would solve. Matter of fact, it would even solve the password problem you're talking about, because even if people had a weaker password, if there was a token they needed, yeah, cool. Sally left her password on the post-it note on her monitor, but they don't have her authenticator, so they don't get in.
Right. Right. And I think Microsoft is trying to address some of these problems. The new Windows 10, they've got special fingerprint readers and cameras. You can use facial recognition, all that voodoo.
The Windows Hello service is what you're actually referring to.
Yeah. So, I don't know. They need to address some of these issues, because here's the thing. Somebody commented on one of my videos that says, "Ha ha ha ha! You're worried about security, but you use Windows." Yeah, so does like 80% of the business world, right? So if you're going to be in this field, I once knew a tech, and I'm just going to call him JM. And if JM is watching, he's going to understand this, right? Do I agree with all of Google's business practices? No. Do I agree with all of Apple's business practices? No. Do I agree with all of Microsoft's business practices? No. Do all of their products get a lot of heavy use in the tech world, and should I know how to use those? Yes. And I'm not going to tell you, the consumer, how to spend your money. I might make suggestions, but if you go, okay, well, I'm going to use Apple, I'm going to say, okay, I can support that. And if I can't, I'm going to say, well, Tom Lawrence can support that. Let me give you Tom's number.
Not if they're an Apple person.
Well, but the thing is,
Yeah,
this guy was a teacher, right? So this guy is supposed to be teaching people, and he literally told me one time, yeah, I've got these little old ladies in my Microsoft Office class, and one of them asked about a Mac, and he literally told them they are wasting their money and they should have never bought a Mac. Like, he told, and I said, you cannot treat people like that. You just called this lady, who's your elder, you basically called her stupid. And as far as a tech goes, I lost a little bit of respect for him that day. Like, you could make suggestions. You can serve a dirt sandwich with a smile. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And there are a lot of techs out there that it's their way or the highway, and they'll call you stupid. But here's the thing: if you're in this business and you're making money, Windows is going to be around. Microsoft is going to be around for a long, long time. They're changing focus. Tom can attest to this. And if you've installed Windows Server 2016. One of the questions it asked you is, oh, hey, do you want to connect this thing to Azure? So that if you want to move it off premise, you just click a button and you're done. Like, they're changing focus. They have to. They're trying to keep up with the times. That being said, cloud companies are super duper good at marketing. Super duper good at marketing. Little light on the facts when it comes to cost, security, and things like that, right? So when I look at a cloud-based app, and Tom, if you think I'm wrong, cut me off at any time. When I'm looking at a web-based app, they're like, oh, our data center's secure. That's awesome. You're a layer whatever, whatever data center. We'll have to break those numbers out because I'm tired of just saying whatever. But, your data center goes through an audit. That's awesome. You don't own the data center. So somebody, though, that owns the data center is paying to have the physical security of the data center verified. That's all the data center is going to do, right? Then it's up to you for the firewalls and the servers and the software, right? So step one, make sure you've got a kick-ass, awesomely secured data center. That's great. That's just one checkbox on the list. Second thing is the firewall that sits in front of the servers and the software. Make sure that it's configured correctly. That is outside of the hands of the data center. So when a software provider comes to me and says, oh, our data center's secure, that's awesome. Now tell me about your firewalls, because your data center has no bearing on your firewall and the software behind it. They don't control that. So quit putting a damn marketing spin on it and fooling people. That's what's happening, right? Okay, so great, your firewall's configured correctly. Who audits your software quarterly since you're selling this to the public? Oh, you don't have a quarterly or yearly audit of your software? Really? Who's attesting that your software is secure? You are? I'm certainly not going to take your word for it. Oh, you're not going to go out of business tomorrow? That's great. It's still my data on your servers. That's the key. That's my data. my data on your servers, right? If I lose that data or you lose that data, you're not going to explain it to my customers where that data went. I'm the one standing in front of the firing squad. So if I'm not anti-cloud, take all your vacation pictures, and if you don't mind losing those or having them publicly disclosed, throw them on Dropbox. I don't care. That's a perfect place for pictures that I don't want to back up. Put them on
Yeah.
Dropbox. Put the music out there, whatever, you know. But any sensitive information, we got to have real common sense conversations about this, and let's quit worrying about the marketing spin. The cloud companies are very good at marketing. Tom, what's the biggest server that you manage as far as storage goes?
Mm, I think we have a 40 terabyte for a client, so nothing.
40
Not in the. I
terabytes.
mean, some of them are cloud, so they're elastic. They have storage as needed.
Right.
But premise wise, I don't think we have anything bigger than 40.
So take that server and put it out in the Microsoft cloud or the Amazon cloud. Look at the compute power that you're moving out there. Look at the network transfer you're moving out there. Look at the raw data storage you're moving out there. You know what it costs you to run that same server in the cloud? Well, people will say it's cheap. It is not cheap.
Yeah, and it does vary. It's so much base. It's a use-based comparison. So, for example, it took this client a long time to switch to the cloud solution. They spent thousands with us dealing with all the problems with the server because they were cloud averse. The cloud fee they've had is $75 per month to move their entire business into the cloud for the software they use. Works amazing. Never had a problem since. They've only paid 75, and 75 a month is far less. I think one year we added up, it was just under 3,000 if we broke out what they spent in server administration and everything else. So it's on a use case. You have to look at what they're doing, how they're using the data, what works for that
Yep.
client. We don't keep any of our stuff in the cloud. There's not a need. We have it all local is really easy, and our FreeNAS videos kind of show how easy it is to build if you're building your own. And if you need something enterprise, I've done one review and I'm doing another review of the TrueNAS box that we have. So if you need something with that enterprise level support but you want to host it all in-house and build your own cloud, as I put it, or your own internal data centers,
Yep.
absolutely. It's always something that has to be evaluated. Like you said, the data center is secure, is great. No one's going to walk off with your drive. That's fine. That's not really where the concern is. Everything comes from the software it runs on it and the mitigating the risk of, is there a vulnerability in that software that will break the VPN, break the encryption, break whatever layers of protection that you have in between.
Yep.
That's where you really have to focus on it.
Yep. Absolutely. So I'll get off my soapbox. Let's I think a lot of us have done videos on the Ubiquity camera systems. Now, there are probably some people who run businesses like ours that do not like the Ubiquity. As far as I can tell, the reason they don't like the Ubiquity software is because they're not getting a monthly reoccurring fee, and it's a little light on the feature set when you start looking at what some other things offer. But overall, I like the solution. And given the use cases that I put it in, it doesn't go in every installation. I think it does a good job.
So, and this is the thing. We have a lot of small business companies, transportation and things like that are popular in our market. Unify works great for them. It's an affordable solution, and we've got some of these with like 25, 30 cameras on them, and it's great. It's been an easy solution. It's easy to use for what they need. They just need to know what happened at a certain time, and we got to set the motion record so they can jump to those timelines, and that works great. Now, let's talk about my other client that I posted a picture at this morning. They own a bridge. So think about that for a second. When you are a private bridge owner, you have to do things like count license plates that come across there. So those type of advanced feature sets become something that goes beyond the range of some of the Unify. They have a whole series of 4K plus cameras, and it's one of those things like it comes back down to like use case. Now, comparing the Unify system to that, the software for that company costs more than a 30 camera installation for Unify,
Yep.
and that's before they bought the cameras.
Yep.
So you're talking about them spending $50,000, $60,000 to put this system in. So it comes down to budget for clients. That's something I've been criticized from my videos, like, oh, you use consumer hardware for that. I'm like, the client needed this, had a budget of that. Would I love it if the client had a $50,000 budget? Great. They didn't. They had a $5,000 budget. This is what a $5,000 budget buys you. I make them aware of the risk that, hey, you know, it'd be great if you had 50,000 to spend on this, you'd get all this. And they're like, we have about 5,000 we can put towards this project because we won't make 50,000 in a year on it.
Right.
So they don't have that.
So I totally agree with you. What I've got right here, this is not a Unify camera. This is actually a license plate, an LPR camera. This single camera, and this is on the lower end of the price spectrum. I'm going to be doing a video on this. This camera is I think we caught it on sale for like $459.99. But it is guaranteed at 38 miles an hour to capture license plates in the dark. The reason that we're doing this is because the Unify system is absolutely terrible. If you think you're going to capture license plates with it, send me your money and I'll do other things with your money. But you really need to, if you're going to do license plate recognition, you have to have a camera that is designed to do it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to leave the Ubiquiti cameras up for daytime because they do awesome in the daytime. I'm going to throw another Linux NVR because we're using the actual Ubiquiti NVRs. These are out in NEMA boxes up on poles out in the middle of nowhere catching garbage dumpers, right? And so we're going to leave the Ubiquiti NVR in the box. I'm going to add another open source NVR software to that box. So we're going to be running the Ubiquiti because it's only got one camera on it. And then we're going to be running another piece that this is going to talk to. And then I'll have to put the NVR in the DMZ so that they can get to it remotely. The whole point of this is that they don't have to go out and pull cards out because you can get trail cams that are specifically meant to capture license plates. But when it's 0 degrees outside and wind and somebody's dumped 75 tires, they don't want to be out jacking around in the cold, and I can't say that I blame them either. This, like I said, I'm going to be doing a video on this. This is actually going to get deployed in production in the next week or so. But do your research, and I've kind of bombarded somebody that I know at Ubiquiti, and I actually sent them a link to this camera. So I don't care if they buy one of these and they take it apart and they figure out how it works. But I told him that one of the missing pieces that I think Ubiquiti has as far as hardware goes is they need an LPR camera. So we'll see if anything comes out of that. What are you doing for license plates, Tom?
I'm just trying to. Someone asked me a question about something else, and I can't remember the name of the camera. It's yeah, I can't remember the name at all.
I really like, as far as standard cameras go, if I don't use, and I'm gonna get totally blasted for this. You'll see this, but if I don't use Ubiquiti, I like either Dahua, and then if it requires something a little different, I like Axis. So those are kind of my three go-to.
Axis are pretty nice. They definitely work.
They're cashy.
Yeah. I'm looking because I'm trying to find an invoice. Exact Vision is some of the software we use, and we pipe that in here.
So Exact Vision makes a really good piece of software. It'll run on Windows or Linux, and
good is subjective.
Well,
horrible interface does a lot of stuff. There we go.
Okay, so the interface, there is a little bit of a learning curve, but it's really easy to export the videos and things like that once you know how to use the viewer. I'm not a fan of I like perpetual licensing, right? I buy it once and I'm done, and when I'm ready to replace, I'm more apt. And that's why I like Ubiquiti, right? They're not raking us over the coals. And so in 5 years, when I think we should replace this stuff, I don't have a problem recommending that because of that price point. But that's the thing I don't like about Exact Vision is that yearly support cost, and that every time you add a camera, there's a license fee. Now, that being said, Synology just came out with a unit that is strictly an NVR, and it does 12 cameras. And we actually deployed one of the non-NVR units. It's a 5-disc unit at a zoo to watch a pregnant giraffe. And so we had to buy an 8-pack of camera licenses. Now, it may sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I'm not, because here's the thing with Synology. It's one shot, one kill. I bought that camera. I never have to pay for it again for the life of my product, or I can even pull the license off and stick it on a different box. So I don't mind paying for that because the stuff just works.
I think we're going to see some more companies popping up. I think Unify has really done a great job on interface wise because it's intuitive. The training on it, this is another advantage because you have to think about this when we're selling projects. Unify is really easy for people to pick up. They don't seem to have a really hard time using it. But I think that's something we're going to start seeing in the future is more companies getting into the NVR space, and it's going to get better, which is great. And until there's volume in those spaces, some of the high-end software is not going to come down in price. It takes, and this is how this works. It takes a finite number of developers to develop this product, and they have to charge enough to keep these developers developing and the company going. So, but as more people use it, software is one of those amazing things. They were talking about Call of Duty the other day because the numbers were out on that game that it made $500 million.
Wait a minute, the new one?
Yeah,
World War II's already made $500 million.
it was something. It's some incredible number.
We're in the
And
wrong
you
business.
talk about spending millions to do it, but this is how the game only costs you so many dollars because they spread it out across so many people and it's made all this money. Yeah, they had to spend like millions in development and all that. It was one of the news articles I was listening to it was on the Windows Weekly podcast. I heard it just before I pulled up into my office and I was like, I'm going to check these numbers. Like, what is he talking about? Paul Thrott did an article about Call of Duty. So, but it's amazing. And software is one of those things. Like once you write it, and this is one of the reasons that, think about this for a minute. Facebook has 2.1 billion users. You know how many people work at Facebook?
Let me guess. I think I saw this. I'm gonna guess it's like what 25,000, 30,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20. I think it's like 20,000 right now. So software is weird because once you develop it, you can, and it of course brings the cost down further. And so we're going to see a lot of good development coming in the NVR space, I think.
Well, speaking of Facebook, now that they're going to start collecting everybody's nudes, and there's going to be humans verifying that, they're going to have to
that.
they're going to have to hire 1,000 more people just to look at nudie pics all day.
Nobody wants that job. Nobody wants that job. I'm sorry.
AI needs to get better. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, and there are so many ways you can poke holes in this that it's not even funny, because if you change one segment of a photo, the hash is going to change.
Yes, that's exactly. Just one little bit changes the hash. So it actually needs to recognize it. So then we need an AI system that can recognize people nude.
Well, and you made a good point yesterday on your vlog, that if I'm taking nudie pics of somebody, I've got those. It's going to be different. It's going to be a different camera angle. It's going to be a different pose, everything, than if somebody's taking their own nudes, right? So if you've got access to somebody's device and they've got your nudes, just delete them. Don't, I don't know. And I'm not of the mindset where I put nudes on an electronic device. Well, let me clarify that. I don't take nudes at all, because I'm not the guy you want to see naked if there's a data breach around here.
I tell people, it's like, just don't take them. Like, don't take them in digital format. If in a connected device, if you never want them, if you never want to worry about it, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Life's better that way.
Yeah. It's just like people browsing in private mode. Yeah, that's fine that people in your house aren't going to see the porn sites you went to, but everybody else in the world's going to have access to that. And I saw a, this is going to be kind of crude, but this is, I have a good sense of humor, and I think you do too. I saw a meme, and it said, so what if the CIA is watching my webcam? What, are they going to watch me jerk off and cry? And I just thought that was absolutely hilarious. I'm not hiding anything. Anything I've surfed, I'll own up to.
Yeah. So this is funny too. So when I was at the Microsoft Build conference, they did a big debut of Microsoft Cognitive Services, and what Cognitive Services is a feature set, and it runs in Azure, of course. This is really neat. So we can actually look at us and determine whether or not we seem happy, seem sad. It can contextually look at people and figure out what they're doing. Now, real world use case that they demoed on stage, they got a person who's blind. And I never thought about this as a real challenge, but when blind people tell a story, I'm right now talking to you and I'm gauging the reactions on your face, whether or not you think what I said is funny or not funny. You're nodding your head.
Right.
If I'm blind, I wouldn't know you're nodding your head. Literally, it watches with the glasses and would whisper in the person's ear, Willie's nodding his head.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we're sighted, so we don't think about this as much. But that's a legit thing. Like if people are nodding along to a story, he doesn't know. They could be going, "No, I don't agree with you," or nodding that they do. So they showed some real world uses, and of course, then comes Pornhub, and
There, you know what?
I wonder if it can figure out and categorize all the videos that get uploaded and put all the tags in for us. So they are now using the Azure Data Center to analyze all their videos to add all the proper tags of what people are doing in the
Yes,
videos.
I saw this. There's actually you can go out and you can fork the software on GitHub,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I was like, this is absolutely brilliant. Say what you want about that industry, but that industry and casinos, they push technology to the
to
limit.
its limit.
Porn decided that VHS was going to kill the Betamax. Let's make no doubt, no quips about that. I mean, they help win format wars, and everybody can sit here and say, well, blah blah, I don't, whatever. So there's a multi-billion-dollar industry for a reason, and that's fine. There's no shame in my game.
Yeah,
I don't look at porn, but I have to test. I have to test web filters,
yeah.
and so we use the most common sites to test web filters. And as a company, I find Pornhub extremely intriguing because I don't know if you guys all remember last year when it was snowing real bad out east. Pornhub, yeah, they had Pornhub stickers on the side of these trucks, but they were out providing services that government couldn't. They were out plowing sidewalks or not sidewalks, streets, city streets, and it's like, what other private business is doing that, And I don't want to get it too politicized, but now they're giving away college scholarships, and I don't think you've got to do anything dirty to get a scholarship, right?
No, no, they really, a lot of those companies, like you said, between casinos and that industry, they really have to push the envelope of technology in order to deliver based on the demand. So whether or not any of us will ever admit to going to the site, there's a billion people on the site. We're just going to say that they have a lot of users. So, so yeah. But it's really interesting, though, the whole AI system and cognitive services, the way it can, contextually do that, because that's going to be some of the next steps in AI, is helping to figure out what the humans are doing and helping us to do it better, more effectively. And I've joked around about this many times. People start these political discussions, and I've diffused a lot of them by saying the same thing of, I just want to replace Congress with an AI system. And people are like, what? I'm like, it wouldn't be either side, so you can't disagree with it. We program an AI system and we let it be Congress.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. A machine, right? It processes what we feed it. As humans, there's always going to be an emotional element that is very difficult to overcome. If you look at our decision making, our cognitive abilities, if you cut our emotion out, like 99% of the time, we're going to make the right decision. But it's that emotional factor that is very difficult to overcome. Hell yeah, let's replace them with load the Constitution into that baby and let's let it roll.
Well, let's make it more fun. Why everyone's worried about the robot overlords taking over? Why let them? Just give it to them. Just
Right?
surrender now.
And the thing is, we are always, people have always screamed, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. With every revolution, with every new invention, new types of jobs have come along with it. So I am not worried about AI completely displacing workers. I think it's going to free us up to do other things. Other industries are going to open up. I just saw an article yesterday. Was it the Philippines? There's a place now in the world, and for some reason I think it's the Philippines. Anyway, they have more outsourced work than India at this point. They're the number one outsourcer, and they are worried that AI is going to disrupt a $23 billion industry. Okay, those people will still find something to do, I believe, and as a tech advocate, I can't say, whoa, let's stop. I can say, hey, let's put some constraints on this, and figure this out. But AI, I think, can only. I wish, I don't know, Elon Musk is an intelligent man, like way more intelligent than I am, and he's worried about this, the Skynet basically activating. And I don't know that I share that same concern. It could happen, but I think that technology and AI it can make us better. Do you know what I mean?
So here's the funny thing, and did you read Elon Musk's book?
Not yet.
So
I can't
read
read
his book. Yeah, read his book. It's great. Here's the problem with Elon Musk, and also who joined in on him is Stephen Hawking. They are people who work at a very high level, who are also surrounded by people who rival their own smartness. All you have to do is interact with the general public for a little while, and you're like, yeah, there's not enough smart people. See, they think everyone's as smart as them. We're not.
Right, right.
We aren't. You might be able to create this scary AI system. You're like, I have it in my head, I could do it, but I'm busy with this space rocket thing, but this could be really bad. Like, yeah, but no one else is as smart as you because none of us are creating space rockets, dude.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. And and I'll tell you, I love surrounding myself with intelligent people. Um, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, and I'm in the wrong room.
yeah, that's I've talked a little bit about that socially on some of my blog stuff. Like that's something I strive to. So yesterday I was at because I volunteered the last few years in a row is the TEDx Detroit
Hmm.
event, and I was there last year. So that's what I'm doing. I want to go meet people who are changing the world and doing cool things and learning stuff. So I hung out there all yesterday, and I'll have a video I post maybe tomorrow or in a couple of days about my experience here because I videoed it. So that's a big thing, you know what I mean? Is trying to find those little smart people to be around you. I would love to be able to hang out with Elon Musk. Like I just want to
Oh,
job shadow him.
well, and see, I actually tagged him in a tweet, and I'm hoping that he'll respond. Even I don't know, maybe even if it's an office worker or somebody who responds. But there was some video of the Hyperloop a few months back that they posted, and they actually use Ubiquity cameras on the Hyperloop. And so
Oh,
last night I'm sitting there on the couch, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna tag him, and I was like, hey man, if you ever want some help dialing in those Ubiquity cameras, just hit me up. So I don't know. I do follow him on Twitter, and the picture. Did you see the picture that he posted with the creators of Rick and Morty? I thought it was brilliant.
yes, I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah,
But I retweeted that and I'm like, I'll be his Morty.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and then I just saw he had a campfire, and he like camped out on the roof of the new Tesla Gigafactory because it was late, or it was cheaper than going to something, or less of a
Uh,
drive or
so
something.
interesting facts you'll find in the book is he actually is semi homeless kind of. He texts he's friends with like all the big people like the guys from Google and all that,
Yeah.
and they're used to it. They comment on the book in it. They're like, yeah, we're used to getting like 2 a.m. Messages directly from Elon. Can I sleep on your couch? Like that's an Elon Musk text. And they're like, yeah, you can come on and sleep on my couch because he'll just work himself. And he's like, I'm too tired to go further, but I'm kind of close to Sergey Brin's house, so I'm just gonna crash.
That's
So
awesome.
he sleeps on couches in Silicon Valley.
That is awesome. What a life, I mean,
Yeah.
all those guys. I would like to just be a fly on the wall in a meeting, because those guys are so forward thinking, and
Yes.
so intelligent that I probably wouldn't understand half of what they say, but it would be awesome to soak it up.
Yes. Yeah, hanging
So
out with people at that level is always cool when I get to meet them. I get to hang out with some people at TEDx last night that are doing some amazing design engineer people that run these big companies, and we're all in the same room, and it's a fun time because you get to sit like, hey, just talk.
yeah,
I'm listening. I know you asked how I was doing. I said, great. What are you doing? Because you're doing something probably more interesting than me.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's always great. I got to meet an interesting guy from Texas last week that owns a big data analytics company, and he just makes me feel like, well, we went to trivia night, and one of the questions was, what was the lead singer of Queen? What was the lead singer of Queen's name? And I wrote, Freddie Mercury, and he goes, oh well, let's put his real name down. And I'm like, whoa, and then I don't know. I thought we were going to get kicked out at one point because he was contesting some questions, and it was hilarious at the fashion at which he did it. But yeah, intelligent people, they kind of make me feel bad that I don't read more and that I don't experiment more. But we need people like that to change the world. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, I'm happy they're doing it. Well, we're starting to get way off topic. I think are we coming to the end of this, or how much
We
longer are we
are,
going to
we
go?
are. I actually have a 12 o'clock appointment, so we need to wrap here in just a couple minutes. So let's go ahead and open it up for questions here the last couple minutes, if that's all right.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
I know we've been just going on and on. It's great to just have a conversation. You know.
Sure. We should probably do this more often.
I
So,
agree.
do you guys know if IGBM proxies can be released in the USG? That's more of a Willie question because I haven't been looking ahead at any of the beta stuff because we don't have any. I have 0 USGs deployed. I have one demo unit sitting on a shelf.
So that I don't know, but stay tuned to the 5.6.22 video, which will be released today. And we'll see if it's hidden in the GUI somewhere. Whoop, whoop, whoop. The web UI. Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Someone's gonna crucify you for that.
Oh, I know. I know. There was literally like it was so ridiculous the things that people argue over on Facebook, and this was one of them. Like, is it a GUI or a GUI or a web UI? It doesn't matter to me. It's like, it's a graphical driven interface. It's not a command line.
I seen someone mention Blue Iris. We actually have some deployments with Blue Iris
Yeah.
for some basic stuff. It works pretty good. It's nothing amazing, but it'll get the job done if you're looking for something inexpensive.
And it's efficient if you let it use its own format, that BVR format, and
Yeah.
and record direct to
And
disk.
make sure you get an Intel processor with the real-time support for encoding. There's a list of the processors. It's easy to find them. A huge number of them support it,
Yeah.
but do get that. It makes a difference if it runs on Intel or AMD, because I don't think AMD supports it. It's some proprietary weird thing that Intel has for real-time encoding of the video, and it's Blue Iris is optimized for it.
Yeah, and you get what, 50 cameras for $50 lifetime.
Something, yeah, it's really inexpensive.
Yeah, and it's got you can do remote in, and it'll do PTZ. It uses standard own VIF or whatever it is.
Yep. Big number of cameras supported too, so a lot of support there.
Yeah, check out Blue Cherry for Linux. There's a little bit of a cost to it, but it's not bad.
Let's see. I don't see. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions I may have just scrolled by and missed. I'm not seeing anything else.
Now, I think Chris handled a couple camera questions up above.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's see. I think there is someone that will enjoy looking at the nudes. Yeah, that's debatable. Let's see. I'm not really seeing a lot of questions. The crowd is kind of quiet. Okay, here we go. How do I get UBNT auto channel use other than 169? So immediately when you're saying 169, I'm thinking you're probably working in the 2.4 gigahertz, and 1, 6, and 11 are actually the non-overlapping channels. At this point, I would never let Unify do auto anything, and people keep asking for a video about this, so I'm gonna have to create it. But don't let your access points do auto anything. Adjust your power and your channels manually. Just avoid any headache. We're going to do a video on that, I think, at some point, and we'll probably go into the field at a live installation. So, let's see. Can I directly upgrade Unify 5.5.27 to 5.6.23? So make a backup and try it. At least you'll have the backup. If you got to wipe it out, all you got to do is restore the config, and you'll be back in business just like that.
Before you update anything, backup, backup, backup.
Backup. And
Matter of fact, because our whole Unify stack is its own VM, we purposely, because it doesn't take a lot of horsepower to run, we put everything in its own Linux box, Linux virtual machine. We usually shut down the virtual machine, back up the virtual machine real quick, or create a snapshot of it,
Yep. Then
do it. That way it's really easy for me just to roll something back.
Yep, absolutely. That's what we do with virtualized controllers. Otherwise, we use I've got just a bash script that I use to SFTP that off of the DigitalOcean controllers. Let's see here.
Oh, Juniper?
Oh yeah.
So why don't we talk? They're real expensive, and I don't know. I'm not a fan of them. They're kind of enterprise only.
I love Junos. Junos, I think, just completely slays Cisco iOS. But you're right. They're hugely expensive. So if somebody wants to send something to the lab, I will do videos. Like if people send me stuff, that stuff gets priority in videos. So just chew on that for a little bit. And then Chris is still here, and I would love to do a, I think that this software, Tom and I are using Zoom. We experimented the other night in a non-college way about how we were going to get this live stream going. And we finally settled on Zoom, and I actually think that we could put Chris in this.
Oh, yeah.
And it would look, I think it would look okay. There's another podcast out there that specifically talks about WISP stuff, and it's not ISP radio, it's the other one. And it was the one that was actually supposed to interview me at Wispapalooza and then blew me off. But they use Google Hangouts, and I wasn't when I watch it, I kind of cringe a little bit when they I don't know what they're doing. But Tom, I gotta tell you, I think we're a couple handsome looking guys on this Zoom, and I think this is gonna break the internet today.
Yep. So let's yeah, I think we can get Chris on here too though. We have to do it later in the day because Chris is probably just waking up. I'm glad he's on here, but I know this is a how many hours? He's in the other side. He's on
Yeah,
West Coast.
yeah. So he's 2 hours behind me, so he's 3 hours behind you, and you're an hour behind me. So we are covering almost. We need somebody in Mountain Time, and we'll have the entire country covered.
Yeah.
Let's see. Should I build a VPN box? Why not? But the edge routers will do IPsec L2TP, which is always a fantastic option. If you're running PPTP, stop, contact one of the three of us, and we will help you migrate from PPTP over to a different VPN solution.
Packet Fence. Have not used it. Looks neat.
So it is awesome, and I have it downloaded, and I've been trying to get to a video of it because it does support edge switches.
Okay.
I just have not had a chance to get to it. So anytime you can run a NAC, I know if you go to a lot of colleges and you plug into certain places and you don't have antivirus on your computer, it scans your computer and it's like, man, you don't have antivirus or you don't have an approved antivirus. And antivirus is such a poor example of that. It's just the one I know off the top of my head. That it won't give you network access and it will actually automatically provision a different VLAN that kind of has you quarantined until you fix the problems with your machine. It's absolutely awesome. That being said, I don't personally know anyone running it outside of a lab. It'd make a good video.
Yeah, maybe I'll download it. Matter of fact, they already have a virtual machine version, which is pretty awesome.
Yep.
I built my new virtual lab, and I did the videos on that with Zen. Really happy with the way that's working out.
Yeah.
I haven't virtualized pfSense. I'm debating about that, but it might be something else I do so we can consolidate everything into one server. The downside is with Zen server is to achieve high availability. I believe I need 3 Zen servers running. So then my networking gets real complicated because I have to put in that many extra network cards in all of them to make it all work.
And then if you do a video on it, people they'll email you and they'll be like, "Hey, I tried to replicate this and it didn't work. Can you troubleshoot it?"
I don't want to troubleshoot it. There's sometimes reasons I'm not always running everything on VLANs, and I have a couple separate networks. I've just put it on a dumb switch. It's a separate network for a few things.
Yeah.
And it's just on its own switch, physically separated, no thoughts needed. That network port goes to that switch, and it runs those devices. Done.
Somebody asked why we don't have super chat. So long story short, and I don't know how much we can actually talk about this, Tom. Tom, your audio went down a little bit, by the way, but I don't know how much we can talk about this without getting in trouble. But it seems that YouTube does not apply the rules of monetization across the board equally. I did a YouTube video when I was first getting started about how to block ads with an edge router, and after that video was posted, they pulled my monetization from my channel completely. I have now written them 6 times, appealed to them 6 times with no response. So, but the good thing is, Tom, and I know Chris gets this, and I'm sure, Tom, you're getting it, where all of these, what do they call it? Not an affiliate, but like they're like, hey, we want you to join our, it's basically they group a bunch of channels together, and they make all the money off you, and you do all the heavy lifting. The good part about that is they don't contact me, or if they do, I tell them I don't have monetization, and they just go away.
So do you have no monetization on your channel at all, Willie?
No. YouTube took it away from me completely because of that video. So
Weird.
I waited a year, I appealed 6 times, and then I went ahead and reposted the video.
Oh.
Yeah. So, speaking of virtualization, I'm a VMware guy, but I think that I'm going to blow out my VMware and I'm going to switch to proxmox. So, proxmox provides some features for free. The one that I like is I can actually emulate an ARM processor because it uses QEMU, so I can actually run my Raspberry Pi software in a VM.
Oh, that's actually I did not know it did that. That's
Yeah.
cool. I've looked at proxmox. I liked it. I play with it. I didn't never do a video on it because I never got in depth. And I'm obsessive, and I have to know a million features before I do the video.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought one of the things I didn't like about proxmox is transportability. So it's super easy for me to import with literally a interface. Just import a VM or export a VM back out of Zen.
Yep.
Zen is open source. Zen gives me all the feature stack, and I can just move VMs around. I can build it on my computer and just drop it right in from VirtualBox to my computer back in. And like we were just talking about pfSense, it has a VM, no problem. Download it and upload it over there.
Yep.
So, and the same thing, my staff, not all of them are tech savvy, but they need to be able to understand VM. They're not Linux people, I should say. So they use it to create VMs of things they're working on. They also need something that's easy to use. And I just found some of those features like proxmox, awesome functionality, awesome, works on ZFS. You can build a ZFS array, which is great, but
Yep.
the other side of it is the a little bit of ease of use issues.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you being here, Tom. Follow Crosstalk Solutions on Twitter and YouTube. Follow Tom Lawrence and Lawrence Systems on YouTube and Twitter, and we're both on Snapchat now. And so if you can find us on Snapchat, maybe we'll accept you. I can't speak for Tom. Just don't send me any dick pics because then I'll just release those in the wild. Um, follow both of us on YouTube, Twitter. I'm also on Instagram. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for being here, Tom.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I will get a hold of you. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Remember to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Down in the description, you're going to find a link to Tom. Has Amazon reached out to you about Amazon influencers yet?
It's on my to-do list.
So I know I have Amazon influencers. I just got it set up. So it's basically like a storefront we can set up, and we can use the link
Oh, cool.
anywhere.
My cousin does it with her. She's got the integration. She's on the beta pro. She's got 500,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
So she's got it actually integrated into her YouTube. It's really neat.
That's awesome.
It lets you pick the products without leaving YouTube.
Yeah.
It's neat.
So this the one that I was invited to, and that I know Chris has been invited to. It's kind of like a little storefront. It's just a link, and we can actually email the link now. And if they see a purchase from there, we don't get dinged since it didn't come from a site that we have listed in our setup. So make sure you're buying, if you want to support the channel, you can buy products there. In the meantime, we will we'll catch y'all on the flip side and look for the Unify video. Go check out Tom's videos, Crosstalk, check out Unky Joe, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thanks, guys.